This is a reading from the Diary of Jesus by Jean Aulagnier. Jesus was going to expound on this after his resurrection and until his ascension. For the moment, he simply said, "It is time to go. Stand up and listen to these last words." John chapter 15, verse 1. "I am the true vine, and it is my Father who tends it. Every branch that yields no fruit in me, he cuts away, and every one that does yield fruit, he prunes it, so that it may yield more fruit. You, through the message I have preached to you, are clean already. You have only to abide in me, and I will abide in you. Branches cannot bear fruit of themselves. They must be grafted on the vine. So it is with you. You cannot yield fruit if you do not abide in me. I am the vine, you are its branches. If a man abides in me, and I in him, then he will yield much fruit. Without me, you can do nothing. If a man does not abide in me, he can only be like a branch that is cast off and withers away. Such a branch is picked up and thrown into the fire to burn there. As long as you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you will be able to make any request you will, and have it granted. My Father's name is glorified when you yield very much fruit, and prove yourselves my disciples. Just as the Father has bestowed his love on me, I have bestowed my love on you. Abide then in my love. You will abide in my love if you keep my commandments, just as it is by keeping my Father's commandments that I abide in his love. I have told you all this so that my joy may be yours, and the measure of your joy may be filled up. This is my commandment, that you should love one another as I have loved you. This is the greatest love a man can show, that he should lay down his life for his friends. And you, if you do all that I command you, are my friends. I do not call you any more my servants. A servant is one who does not understand what his master is about. Whereas I have made known to you all that my Father has told me, and so I have called you my friends. It was not you that chose me, it was I who chose you. And the task I have appointed you is to go out and bear fruit, fruit which will endure, so that every request you make of the Father in my name may be granted you. These are the directions I give you, that you should love one another. Do not tell me, if you have chosen us, why did you choose a betrayer? If you know everything, why did you do that? I told you, it is not a man, it is Satan. He totally enslaved himself to Satan. In a sense, Satan has taken flesh in him. Some apostles, overcome with self-doubt, Luke chapter 22, verse 23, began to inquire among themselves which of them it was who would do this. Judas Thaddeus could no longer hold it in and burst out, "It is Judas of Caiaphas. Do you not understand?" "Quiet," Jesus said. "It is Satan. He has no other name. I order you to love and forgive one another." At this he said, John chapter 15, verse 18, "If the world hates you, be sure that it hated me before it learned to hate you. If you belonged to the world would know you for its own and love you. But it is because you do not belong to the world, because I have chosen you out from the midst of the world, that the world hates you. Do not forget what I said to you. No servant can be greater than his master. They will persecute you just as they have persecuted me. They will pay the same attention to your words as to mine, and they will treat you like that because you bear my name. They have no knowledge of the one who sent me. If I had not come and given them my message, they would not have sinned. As it is, they have no excuse for their sin. To hate me is to hate my Father too. If I had not done the miracles no one else ever did in their midst, they would not have sinned. As it is, they have hated with open eyes, both me and my Father. And all this in fulfillment of the saying which is written in their law. They hated me without cause. Well, I send the Paraclete to you from the Father's side. He is the truth-giving Spirit who proceeds from the Father. When he comes, he will bear witness of what I am. Then you too are to be my witnesses, you who from the first have been in my company. John chapter 16, verse 1. I have told you this so that your faith may not be taken unawares. They will forbid you the synagogue. Yes, the time is coming when anyone who puts you to death will claim that he is performing an act of worship to God. Wow. They will do such things to you because they have no knowledge of the Father or of me. And I have told you this so that when the time comes for it to happen, you may remember what I told you of it. If I did not tell you of it from the first, it was because I was to be with you. But now I am going back to the one who sent me. None of you is asking me, where is it you are going? Since your hearts are filled with sorrow at my telling you this. But I can truly say that it is better for you I should go away. The Paraclete will not come to you unless I do go. Once I go, I will send him to you. And when he comes, he will prove the world wrong about sin, about rightness of heart, and about judging. About sin, because they did not believe in me. About rightness of heart, because I am going back to my Father, and you are to see me no longer. About judging, because the prince of this world has had sentence passed on him already. I have still much to say to you, but it is beyond your reach as yet. But when the truth-giving Spirit comes, he will guide you into all truth. He will not utter a message of his own. He will utter the message that has been given to him, and he will show you what is still to come. And he will glorify me, because it is from me that he will derive what he makes plain to you. I say that he will derive from me what he makes plain to you, because all that belongs to the Father belongs to me. After a while, you will see me no longer, and again after a little while, you will see me, because I am going back to the Father. Upon this, some of his disciples said to one another, What does he mean? After a little while you will see me no longer, and again after a little while you will see me. What does he mean? Because I am going to the Father. What is this little while he is speaking of? They asked. We cannot understand what he means by it. Jesus, knowing that they were eager to question him, said to them, You are wondering among yourselves over what I have been saying. After a little while you will see me no longer, and again after a little while you will see me. Believe me when I tell you this. You will weep and lament, while the world rejoices. You will be distressed, but your distress shall be turned into joy. A woman in childbirth feels distress, because now her time has come. But when she has borne her child, she does not remember the distress any longer. So glad is she that a man has been born into the world. So it is with you. You are distressed now, but one day I will see you again, and then your hearts will be glad, and nobody will be able to take your gladness away from you. When that day comes, you will not need to ask anything of me. Believe me, you have only to make any request of the Father in my name, and he will grant it to you. Until now, you have not been making any requests in my name. Make them, and they will be granted, to bring you gladness in full measure. I have been telling you this in parables. Now the hour is coming when I will no longer speak to you in parables, but tell you openly about the Father. At the time I speak of, you shall make your requests in my name, and there is no need for me to tell you that I will ask the Father to grant them to you, because the Father himself loves you, since you have loved me and have come to believe that I came from God. Yes, I came forth from the Father when I entered the world, and now I am leaving the world and going on my way to the Father. At this, his disciples said to him, Why now you are speaking plainly enough? This is no parable you are uttering. Now we can be sure that you know all things, and that you do not need to wait till you are asked. This gives us faith that you were sent by God. You have faith now? Jesus answered. Behold, the hour comes, actually it has already come, when you will be scattered, each of you taking his own path, and you will leave me alone. And yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. I have said this to you, so that in me you may find peace. In the world you will only find tribulation, but take courage, I have overcome the world. John chapter 17, verse 1. Thus Jesus spoke to them, and then, lifting up his eyes to heaven, he said, Father, the time has come. Glorify your Son, that your Son may glorify you. You have put him in authority over all mankind, to bring eternal life to all those you have entrusted to him. Now, this is eternal life, to know you, who are the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. I have exalted your glory on earth by achieving the task which you gave me to do. Now, Father, exalt me at your own side, in that glory which I had with you before the world began. I have made your name known to the men whom you have entrusted to me, chosen out of the world. They were yours, and you gave them to me, and they have kept true to your word. Now they have come to recognize that all the gifts you gave me did come from you. I have given them the message which you gave me, and they received it and recognized it for truth, that I came from you. And they have believed that it was you who did send me. It is for them that I pray. I am not praying for the world, but for those whom you have entrusted to me. They belong to you, as all I have is yours, and all you have is mine. And then my glory is achieved. I am remaining in the world no longer, but they remain in the world, while I am on my way to you. Holy Father, keep them, your gift to me, true to your name, so that they may be one, as we are one. As long as I was with them, your gift to me, I kept them true to your name. I have watched over them so that only one has been lost, the son of perdition, in fulfillment of the scripture. But now I am coming to you, and while I am still in the world, I am telling them this, so that my joy may be theirs and reach its full measure in them. I have given them your message, and the world has nothing but hatred for them, because they do not belong to the world, as I too do not belong to the world. I am not asking that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them clear from what is evil. They do not belong to the world, as I too do not belong to the world. Sanctify them through the truth, then. It is your word that is truth. You have sent me into the world, and I have sent them into the world, and I dedicate myself for their sakes, that they too may be dedicated through the truth. It is not only for them that I pray also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, that they too may be one in us, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, so that the world may come to believe that you have sent me. And I have given them the privilege which you have given me, and they should all be one, as we are one, that while you are in me, I may be in them, so that they may be perfectly made one. So let the world know that you have sent me, and that you have bestowed your love on them, as you have on me. This, Father, is my desire, that all those whom you have entrusted to me may be with me where I am, so as to see my glory, your gift to me, in that love which you had for me before the creation of the world. Father, you are just. The world has never acknowledged you, but I have acknowledged you, and these men have acknowledged that you did send me. I have revealed and will reveal your name to them, so that the love you have bestowed upon me may dwell in them, and I too may dwell in them. This was Jesus' last extensive exhortation to his 11 apostles before he died. They were still gathered in the Eucharist room. Meanwhile, the Virgin Mary was praying nearby in her room. She had received the Eucharist for the first time from her son's own hand. That was the last time they met before Jesus would go to his fate. The Passion. After this, having but one purpose in mind, his mission, Jesus said, "Let us put our coats on now, and let us go." The streets were quiet. The full moon was beginning to turn, the rooftops to silver. It was already late in the evening. Jesus and Simon the Zealot walked side by side and spoke for a long time. Jesus exacted 2 promises from him. Upon arriving in Gethsemane, Simon would go to Bethphage. He would tell Gamaliel that the sign he had been expecting for 21 years would take place shortly. The stones of the temple would be shaken. See May 2nd, A.D. 9, page 37. Jesus told Simon that many apostles and disciples were going to wander around after he was betrayed. They would be at a loss, tired of waiting. Simon promised to bring all those he could find to Lazarus' home. Footnote 20. Simon obeyed those orders to the letter. Shortly after they crossed the Kidron River, Jesus told his apostles, Matthew chapter 26, verse 36b, "Sit down here while I go up there and pray." But he took Peter and the sons of Zebedee with him, and now he grew sorrowful and dismayed. My soul, he said, is ready to die with sorrow. Stay here and watch with me. When he had gone a little further, he fell upon his face in prayer and said, My Father, if it is possible, let this chalice pass me by, only as your will is, not as mine is. Then he went back to his disciples and found them asleep. He said to Peter, You could not watch with me even for an hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit is willing enough, but the flesh is weak. Then he went back again and prayed a second time. My Father, he said, if this chalice may not pass me by, but I must drink it, then your will be done. Jesus was distraught. He called Peter and John to himself, but they did not come. Matthew chapter 26, verse 43. And once more he came to his disciples and found them asleep, so heavy their eyelids were. He said to them, What are you doing? I have called you 3 times. Can you not tell I am suffering greatly? Pray, help me. The 3 slowly awoke and got up with difficulty. Jesus' face was ashen. He was not so much physically tired as mentally weary from his apostles' weakness. The 3 apostles could not overcome their drowsiness. Jesus remained by himself, alone to cope with his oppressive suffering. Matthew chapter 26, verse 44. He left them and prayed a 3rd time, using the same words. My Father, if this chalice may not pass me by, but I must drink it, then your will be done. Luke chapter 22, verse 43. And an angel from heaven appeared to him, encouraging him, and now he was in an agony, and prayed still more earnestly. His sweat became as drops of blood trickling down to the ground. When he rose from his prayer, he went back to his disciples and found that they were fast asleep. Jesus had to shake them. Then he said, Matthew 26, verse 46, Rise up, let us go on our way. Already he that is to betray me is close at hand. They walked back to the other apostles. They too were sleeping. Jesus bellowed, Get up, now that Satan is coming. Show to the one who never sleeps and to his minions that the sons of God do not sleep either. Mark chapter 14, verse 43. While he was yet speaking, Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12, came near. With him was a great crowd carrying swords and clubs, who had been sent by the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. The traitor had appointed them a signal. It is going to be the man I greet with a kiss, he said. Hold him fast and take him away under guard. No sooner then had he come up that he went close to Jesus, saying, Greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. Matthew chapter 26, verse 50. Jesus said to him, My friend, what are you here for? Luke chapter 22, verse 48b. Is that how you betray the Son of Man, with a kiss? John chapter 18, verse 4. So Jesus, knowing well what was going to happen to him, went out to meet the others. Who is it, he asked, you are looking for? Jesus of Nazareth, they answered, and he told them, I am he. When he said to them, I am he, they all shrank back and fell to the ground. Judas ran away. So once more Jesus asked them, Who is it you are looking for? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. He answered, I have told you already that I am he. If I am the man you are looking for, let these others go free. Now Simon Peter had borrowed a sword from Lazarus. John chapter 18, verse 10a. Then he drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. Matthew chapter 26, verse 52. Jesus said to Peter, Put your sword back into its place. All those who take up the sword will perish by the sword. Do you doubt that if I call upon my Father even now, he will send more than 12 legions of angels to my side? Luke chapter 22, verse 51. He then touched the man's ear and healed him. Mark chapter 14, verse 50b. And now all his disciples abandoned him and fled. Jesus was left alone with the cutthroats who had been hired by the chief priests. They set off on Jesus' last horrible journey. He was jeered at and mistreated. Jesus, tugged left and right, fell hard on the bridge parapet as they crossed the Kidron River. His mouth began to bleed. People flung garbage in his face. The bawling mob woke people up as they entered the city. and people came to their doors. The women drew back, terrified, but the men remained indifferent, or even drew near, threateningly. Peter and John hid near the city walls and saw everything. They showed themselves to Jesus, and he smiled at them. John chapter 18, verse 13. The ruffians led him off, in the first instance to Annas, father-in-law to Caiaphas, who was the high priest in that year. Jesus majestically stood up to Annas' groundless accusations. Then, John chapter 18, verse 19. The high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. At this point, one of the attendants hit Jesus in the face. Jesus, unmoved, replied, John chapter 18, verse 20b, I have spoken openly before the world. I have always taught in the synagogue and in the temple, where all the Jews gather. Nothing that I have said was said in secret. Why do you question me? Ask those who listened to me what my words were. They know well enough what I said. When he spoke thus, another one of the servants who was standing by struck Jesus on the cheek. Is this, he said, how you make answer to the high priest? If there was harm in what I said, Jesus answered, tell us what was harmful in it. If not, why do you strike me? Annas stopped questioning Jesus and went over to Caiaphas' residence. Jesus was left behind under custody. John arrived at the door. Annas' servants knew him and had let him in. Jesus motioned him away with a glance. Luke chapter 22, verse 63. The men who held him prisoner beat him and mocked him until Annas, John chapter 18, verse 24, sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Jesus, on his way out, once again saw Peter and John. They were warming themselves at the fire in the midst of the hostile crowd. Gamaliel arrived just as they were going to bring Jesus into Caiaphas' house. He came right by Jesus. Without moving his lips, he whispered to him, Who are you? Tell me. Jesus whispered back, Read the prophets and you will find out. They will give you the first sign. The other one is coming. Both men walked in, followed by all the members of the Sanhedrin. Caiaphas opened the meeting, and accusations were brought forth. The accusations included violation of the Sabbath, dealing with prostitutes, and many more. Gamaliel did not wait very long. With the support of Joseph and Nicodemus, he declared that the meeting was illegal because of the time, it was night, and the place, Caiaphas' home. For this reason, he walked out. Caiaphas was furious and called in the false witnesses. Joseph of Arimathea flared out and said that he would tell the Roman authorities what was happening. He openly declared himself to be a friend of Jesus and walked out. Nicodemus followed him in silence. As for Eleazar and John the scribe, they had refused to show up for the meeting, even though they had been summoned by Caiaphas. The others became enraged and accused Jesus of prostituting the best Jews. At this, two false witnesses, Matthew chapter 26, verse 61, declared, This man said, I have power to destroy the temple of God and raise it again in 3 days. He will do it with the help of demons, the perjurers commented. Matthew chapter 26, verse 62. Then the high priest stood up and asked Jesus, Have you got nothing to say in response to what these witnesses say against you? Jesus remained silent, and the high priest said to him openly, I adjure you by the living God to tell us whether you are the Christ, the Son of God. Jesus answered, Your own lips have said it. Moreover, I tell you this, you will see the Son of Man again, when he is seated at the right hand of God's power and comes on the clouds of heaven. At this, the high priest tore his garments and said, He has blasphemed. What further need do we have of witnesses? Mark well, you have heard his blasphemy for yourselves. What is your finding? And they answered, The penalty is death. Then they fell to spitting upon his face and buffeting him and striking him on the cheek with the palms of their hands, saying as they did so, Show yourself a prophet, Christ. Tell us who struck you. Jesus was removed from the hall. The night went by. April 5th, Friday of AD 30. This was now the day before Passover. Shortly before dawn, orders were given to bring Jesus back to the Sanhedrin. This time the trial would not be as blatantly illegal. Since no one had told Mary what was happening, John left Peter to inform her of Jesus' arrest. Dawn, not quite 5 a.m. Peter disowned Jesus for the third time, just as Jesus was coming from behind. Peter did not see him, but Jesus overheard Peter and was very hurt. The cock crew, and as Peter turned to run away, he came face to face with Jesus. Jesus looked at Peter with infinite pity and intense grief. Peter walked away sobbing. Luke chapter 22, verse 66. When day came, they brought him before their council. If you are the Christ, they said, tell us. Why, he said, if I tell you, you will never believe me. And if I ask you questions, I know you will not answer them, nor acquit me. I will only tell you that a time is coming when the Son of Man will be seated in power at God's right hand. At this, most of them said, you are then the Son of God? He told them, your own lips have said that I am. They reached the same verdict as they did during the night. Luke chapter 22, verse 71b. What further need do we have of witnesses? We have heard the words from his own mouth. They ordered him to be brought over to Pilate. The guards deliberately took a long detour through the streets in order to harass Jesus. People shouted cruel insults at Jesus. The crowds threw some garbage at him so that it was hanging from his hair and in his eyes. At this point, none other than Judas ran into the escort. Jesus looked at him with pity, and Judas pretended to faint. He did not want to face Jesus' gaze.